So when we talk about data, we're talking operational data. Okay, so we think about the business as an engine. The output of the engine is financial. We measure that very effectively because we have GAAP. So if you go and talk to someone about your business, you can talk about your financials. But there's no framework for talking about your operations. But the only framework we've ever had is due diligence. And by the time you get to due diligence, you know, you're halfway through a deal, you don't do a deal. There's never been a framework for measuring that. So if we're going to work on the engine, if we're going to communicate about the engine, we needed a framework in which to measure that engine. And that's really what the pioneering work that we've been doing literally since MIT. At MIT, I was a process engineer, which means, you know, how do you make processes run better? And I was very lucky. I've been very lucky in my life. I was very lucky. The professor that I worked for also was a professor at the Harvard Business School. Is the only full professor of both that I've ever heard of. But what we were saying is the business is an engine. How do we make the engine run better? And so we were looking at algorithms and data and how do you make the engine run better? And today, people do that a lot, right? They think about process engineering within businesses, but back then it was really leading edge stuff. But what we realized was that as we went forward is if there's not a standard way to communicate that, a gap, analogous to gap on the operational side, then we can't work together. I mean, we can't communicate to each other because we all have a different language. So one of the things that we pioneered while we were doing our advisory work was a framework by which to measure operational performance, irrespective of industry. Whether you're a manufacturer or you're a retail, what are the standards of a well-run private business? It took 2 years of effort. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but for 2 years, we looked at everything that existed. We worked with experts. And out of 2 years of work came this: 18 drivers. What we found after all of that work was that there are 18 drivers of operational performance, or fundamentally 18 drivers of value. So think of that as the gears to the engine. So what we're trying to do is open up the hood and look inside and say, okay, let's look at the gears. Let's see where it's weak and where it's strong. And so when you look at these, you know, across half of them are market, external to your business, and half of them are internal to your business. And as you go through real quickly, growth, large market, you've got your dominant market share, recurring revenue. I don't read them all off, but as you read them, you go, well, they're pretty obvious. So we've literally had these 18 drivers reviewed, vetted by tens of thousands of folks. And here's the standard response. Duh. They're obvious. But that's what you want. If you go read GAAP, if you're really bored sometime and you want to go to sleep, go all the way back and read GAAP. But it's fundamentally saying, you know, you need to be honest, you need to have a framework by which to measure. We've done the same thing on the operational side. And this has been adopted all the way from people on the street, the folks at Harvard Business School, executive education, they've adopted it. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, of which CONNSTEP is a part of, they've adopted this framework. So we have adoption happening across the country. And that's very, very important so that we can have an ongoing conversation.